One of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the Big 12, could be on the move. And I'm not only talking about TCU with Matt Campbell of Iowa State. Welcome into the YouTube channel. I am John Kurtz. If you have not subscribed, please consider doing so. I talk college football all week here on this channel. That includes specifically Big 12 football content and conference realignment. Well, the Big 12 coaching carousel actually has been pretty fun and entertaining already. It may get even more so if Matt Campbell does decide to leave Iowa State. These are not just rumors here at this point. This is the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Multiple people at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram reporting that there is legitimate interest from Matt Campbell in the TCU job. More on that in just a moment. I do want to focus in for just a minute on the fact that the Big 12 is going to get more fun and more exciting by the hire that Texas Tech made. And that is a part of what has made the coaching carousel already pretty fun and entertaining in the league, because I think this was a very, not only dynamic hire by Texas Tech, but kind of an outside-the-box sort of hire for Tech. It was not Sonny Dykes. It was not even Jeff Traylor. This is a little bit different version of what Jeff Traylor would have been as the hire, UTSA's head coach right now. But man, shout out to Joey McGuire. I sat next to Matt Wells for a large portion of his press conference and breakout session at Big 12 Media Days back in July in Arlington. Very milquetoast compared to that. Not nearly as exciting and energetic as that. So, look, Joey McGuire is going to do a lot of things in Lubbock. He's going to be a pretty dynamic recruiter with Texas connections everywhere, being a Texas coaching legend. He also absolutely loves Lubbock and wants to be there. And remember, that's a sticking point with Tech fans after Matt Wells, pretty close to when he got fired, was asked on his radio show about what he liked about Lubbock and didn't have much of an answer other than his family. That is not going to be the case with Joey McGuire, who's already shown off the cheese sticks at Spanky's. I took note of that, which I have had before, and they are delicious. Whether or not you think he's going to ultimately be a successful coach, I do think he will recruit better, and he is a guy that wants to be there. So there's a lot to like, I think, about the Joey McGuire hire at Texas Tech. Safe to say, to me, the ceiling has been raised at Tech, and that's absolutely a good thing for the rest of the league. Makes it potentially more competitive, makes it much more interesting, and if this guy succeeds, Joey McGuire, to me, strikes me as a bit of like a Coach O type personality, where if he really hits it big at Texas Tech, that's going to be a guy that's really emblematic of the culture and the program that he is running. And I think people will really take to that and run with it. So there is some potential there for sure. But I know the reason you're here, and much of the intrigue right now surrounds this TCU job, man. I mean, that is the good part of all of this, because we're hearing about Deion Sanders, Matt Campbell, and Chris Peterson all being reported in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram as legitimate candidates / people that have at least been contacted by TCU. And that is fascinating. No offense to Sonny Dykes, but it's a hell of a lot more entertaining than simply going and hiring Sonny Dykes. So here's this from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. It is Mac Engel, who, yes, many of you will remember and were frustrated with him for his column saying that TCU and Houston were close to being invited to the Pac-12 and still may be there within a year. That is the same guy, but this is what Mac Engel says on Matt Campbell of Iowa State. Quote, most notably, candidates include Iowa State coach Matt Campbell. There is interest there, and TCU has a small chance. As a Midwest guy, Campbell would prefer a Michigan State or Penn State. Mel Tucker and James Franklin are reportedly candidates of interest for the openings at LSU and USC. But if neither Penn State nor LSU open, Campbell leaving for TCU is plausible. So that is kind of the way I tried to lay it out after we first saw Mac Engel's colleague, Drew Davison, who's the beat writer for TCU, not the columnist, but the beat writer for TCU, bring it up. I said on my live show, guys, like, there is a non-zero chance there. It's not laughable that there would be mutual interest and that there would be some interest from Matt Campbell. Not as crazy as Iowa State fans make it out to be, and this is not the hate talking. Let's just think about this. TCU, we've seen the numbers, the 24/7 composite. TCU has recruited at the third best level of anybody in the Big 12 here over the last 5 years, behind Oklahoma and Texas. So they stand to be potentially the best place to recruit to in the new look Big 12. Obviously, that's pretty much all geography, being so close to Dallas, well, in the DFW Metroplex, right? And so you're not only keeping kids home, but you can pull kids into a big metro area. There's a lot to like about being right there if you are TCU. That's what a lot of it is, but that's a huge recruiting advantage. And Matt Campbell is bumping up against the ceiling of what you can do recruiting-wise at Iowa State. So his ceiling is raised immediately if he does take the job at TCU. They also have some pretty deep pockets. I would think they would be able to outduel Iowa State when it came to a financial package for Matt Campbell, and would have to if they want to sway him away from the Cyclones. The other part here is the timing. And this is another thing from the article in Matt Campbell. He says, quote, he has a good team with a senior QB, and coaches often feel if they're going to leave to a better job, they have to do it now when they have a winning team. Yeah, and I would even spin it a different way. It's not only let's strike while the iron's hot thing, but it's what am I going to lose and what is next year going to look like? And this Iowa State team had all these super seniors and players come back and skip the NFL draft for this year, which has turned out to be mildly disappointing, at least so far. But the point is, next year could be tough. Next year could be a rebuilding year. That star may not be as bright. The timing would be right now for Campbell to take one of these jobs. And obviously, it may not be TCU. The article even acknowledges that. If Penn State and or Michigan State come open, that could be real trouble for Iowa State as well. We know Michigan State will pay. That one is really intriguing to me because Penn State, Luke Fickell makes a ton of sense there, and that's another thing we would be talking about here on this channel, obviously, because he's the head coach of Cincinnati. Luke Fickell makes a lot of sense there if James Franklin were to leave. But Michigan State, I still think it's a better job than Iowa State. Perhaps somewhat marginally, but I think that's definitively a better job. At the same time, we know they'll pay. I mean, they paid a ton of money to Mel Tucker to get him away from Colorado to Michigan State. They also paid their coordinator 7 figures. I know that because Scotty Hazelton, K-State's defensive coordinator, got lured away to go to Michigan State. Like, they will pay. They have the resources. They're making that Big Ten money, and this is where that money gap comes into play between the Big Ten and the SEC and the rest of the college football world. So I would be nervous about that if I were an Iowa State fan. I'm not saying it's for sure going to happen. I understand Matt Campbell is much more likely to stick at Iowa State than a lot of coaches in his situation. I acknowledge that. I get it. But I would be concerned about both of these if I were a Cyclone fan. And then finally, we have the fact that TCU is just absolutely swinging for the fences here, being a part of the intrigue for me. Because, man, let's look at this report from Matt Campbell, further from his article. He said TCU actually reached out to Chris Peterson, the former Boise State and Washington head coach, and his answer was, quote, thanks but no thanks. Lots of reasons to understand why TCU would want to go grab him. Obviously, he's a high-profile free agent just sitting out right now. In general, he was 55-26 at Washington, but he was also 92-12 at Boise State, a program that he took to new heights just like Gary Patterson did at TCU. So, hey, that is the way you should conduct a coaching search. I applaud TCU's effort there. Go after some of the big fish. Make them tell you no. And they have done exactly that with Peterson and Matt Campbell. The part I don't get about this search is that some of it is centered around Deion Sanders. I mean, look, he's 8-1 at Jackson State right now, but he hasn't even coached the last 3 weeks because of complications from a surgery. He's a recruiter. He's definitely recruited well. I'm sure he could get players to TCU, but it takes more than that at this level. And TCU is already, as I mentioned, recruited at a pretty high level. And Gary Patterson, who's a proven football coach with a big-time track record, couldn't figure it out here at the end. I would not take that risk on Coach Prime if I were TCU. But hey, LaDainian Tomlinson is on the selection committee. He's clearly got some sway there, and it makes for really, really interesting fodder for us and would be a fascinating hire if it did happen. But credit to TCU again for the approach that they've taken. They're doing this the right way, and they're doing it in a way that's providing us a lot of entertainment. We'll see what happens with Matt Campbell, but no matter what happens, we'll cover it here on the channel. Stick around. Please subscribe if you have not. I talk Big 12 football conference realignment all week long here on this channel. Live shows Tuesday nights now and Sunday night with the college football playoff reaction shows. All right, follow me on Twitter at JL Kurtz, and I will talk to you guys soon.